Hunter is the most interesting character right now in the Owl House because he is the character for whom the stakes are most clear and most immediate. Contrast this against Luce. Luce, as much as I love her and as interesting as I think her conflicts with her mother are, and as much as I hope that more time is devoted to those conflicts as the show progresses, I do think that we should call attention to the fact that Luce can just spend an entire episode in this meandering side plot chasing after the author of the Azura books in a storyline that acts as a little bit of April Fool's Day mockery of all those strange and wild and unhinged Azura theories and hypotheses that have been floating around the fandom for the last year or so. Or honestly, even longer than that. Now, I like that plotline. I think it's pretty good. That's not a complaint about our B-plot here. I'm just saying that it is a luxury for Luce that she can afford to spend her time on such a B-plot. Hunter is not that lucky. He feels a profound crisis of identity. What he seeks is not power, necessarily. He doesn't want others to worship him. He doesn't want the Lord as power and influence over others. But he does want their respect. He does want their trust. He does want others to view him as worthy and thoughtful and a real intelligent person worth listening to. And others don't view him as that. The Coven heads openly mock him. They view him as a whiny teenager who only has his position at the head of the Emperor's Coven because of nepotism. And that's not exactly wrong, which is why it hurts Hunter so much, and why he is so desperate to prove himself. He is forced to recognize the limit of his influence in the Emperor's Coven. Belos gives him a high position because of his genetic connections with Hunter, but Belos cannot give him respect. Belos cannot make others view him as a worthy and independent individual and not just a nepotistic appendage of the Emperor himself. Forced to realize how limited his influence is, he's desperate to prove himself, which leads him to conducting an infiltration of Hexside. I was wondering how they were going to do this, considering that both Luce and Amity would instantly recognize him. But of course, the show solves this pretty brilliantly by sending Luce and Amity away on a side plot so that no one in the school recognizes Hunter. And then at the end of the episode, when they discover Hunter's been at the school, they're both shocked. It's a pretty clever way to do it. It's contrived, but in a subtle and thoughtful way that doesn't seem too overt, which I appreciate. Hunter demonstrates in this episode that he is not willing to hurt people with whom he's formed a close connection. Given the choice between doing what he believes is expected of him and forcing Willow and her compatriots to join the Emperor's Coven, and being loyal to Willow, who was nice and considerate toward him and valued him as a person, he chooses Willow. He chooses his companions in the sports team. This is not the first time Hunter has demonstrated that he values personal connections over glory and fulfilling expectations. Think back to Hunting Palisman. He has a clear choice in that episode, after Luce calls him out, between doing his duty to the Emperor and capturing the Palisman, and siding with Luce, whom he feels understands him, and whom he felt a strong and personal connection with. so he chooses Luce. The only time we see him act against his warm and fuzzy moral feelings in the interest of the Emperor is in Eclipse Lake, wherein he betrays Amity to take the key. But in that episode, number one, he is not nearly as close with Amity as he is with Luce, and Amity never really opens up to him in the same way that Luce did. And number two, the pressure was significantly more intense on Hunter in that episode, because Belos had issued to him a pretty firm ultimatum. His ties to the Emperor's Coven appear to be weakening, as demonstrated by the hilarious scenes in which he is trying to get other people to join the Emperor's Coven. All these scenes are funny, but they also serve a purpose. It's not just that Hunter is socially awkward and that he doesn't know how to convince other people to join his side, and it's also not just that he has very little experience interacting with other teenagers, and thus does not have a good grip on what they actually want, although it is all of that. It's also that he doesn't really know why the Emperor's Coven would be appealing. There are significant cases to be made for the Emperor's Coven. It's prestigious. It provides one with good job security, presumably. It's a position of power and influence. It's very respectable. There are good pitches for the Emperor's Coven, and yet Hunter does not think to rely on those, because he's only as committed to the Coven as he is because of the personal preferential treatment he's gotten from Belos, who made him feel like a significant person despite not having access to magic. He's no longer an outcast, and that's not really something he can sell to other people. When he looks at it from outside his own personal perspective, he can't really be entirely sure of why he joined the Emperor's Coven in the first place. And I love the joke about how little time off the Emperor's Coven gives those who join it. It's not an appealing place to be. And when Hunter is forced to confront the shortcomings of the Emperor's Coven compared to the close and tender and intimate bonds he's formed with Willow and Gus and that whole Hexside team, he's hesitant. He's questioning why he is so committed to the Emperor's Coven in the first place. Hunter is looking for people who view him as a person and not merely as a means to an end. He's looking for people who value him for his actual personality, as opposed to his position and rank or what he can do for them. The acceptance Willow and Gus provide him in taking him into their band of misfits is genuine and sincere, as is their joy when he wins them that big game. Even Darius, in a real deepening of his character, admires Hunter for making decisions based on his own convictions and values, instead of merely submitting to authority. Hunter surprises Darius, and Darius respects him for that. All of this is meant to contrast against how the Emperor treats Hunter. The Emperor does not value him as a person in of himself. The Emperor merely thinks of him as a means to get to whatever grand moments in the Day of Unity he is trying to create. We don't quite know what the Emperor's plans are, but we have pretty clear evidence at this point that he did not decide to help Hunter merely out of the goodness of his heart, and he certainly does not value Hunter's own ideas and perspectives. If you read Sartre, he talks a lot about how who we are is not this abstract, Platonic, pseudo-mystic concept. It's not up there in some ethereal realm. It's here, on the earth, with others, in the realm of experience, based on the choices we make. We decide who we are with every action we take. And we attempt through these actions to try and create an image of ourselves and to get others to accept and understand that image. And the gap between this image we're trying to create of ourselves and how other people see us based on the actions they see us taking is this pure source and wellspring of existential anguish, and that's what Hunter is undergoing here. He wants to be seen as a person who is respectable for his own convictions and values. He wants to be seen as a mature, thoughtful, professional member of the Emperor's Coven, but he's not. They only tolerate him because of his rank, and even that's a cause for mockery because they know he got it from nepotism. Willow and her group, however, treat him warmly because they get to know him and understand him, and they don't have any preconceived notions about him. The same is true for Luce, and even Darius, who sees his preconceived notions about Hunter completely thwarted by the decisions that Hunter actually makes, and Darius adjusts his view of Hunter based on those decisions. I know that Hunter, seeing this, will think about his future behavior in response to how others have treated him, and I believe he will only grow further away from Belos as the show progresses. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching The Owl House. I can't wait to see what they do with it from here. I really do think that they would not have had an episode like this if they weren't at least going to have Hunter consider changing sides, so take that into account. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon, promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.